Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I hope my camera and microphone are working. It's always a good time with Instagram Live because there's like guaranteed to be glitches. I just got a notification from myself that I'm live. Anyways, good morning and welcome. I'm going to be having Dr. Rachel Barr here on live stream on Instagram. Thanks for anyone who set up the reminder. As soon as Rachel joins the sort of queue, I'm going to have her jump in here, and we're going to be talking about her book, How to Make Your Brain Your Best Friend. I got my copy. I've been working my way through it and enjoying it. But if anyone has questions for me or Rachel, please feel free to drop them in the chat here while we're waiting to get started. There's almost sure to be like a 60 to 120 second wait time for Instagram Live to start working properly. So I'm gonna try to get Rachel in here. On momentarily. Good morning.
Morning. How are you
How are you?
doing?
All right.
Yeah, it's stressful when you've never used the tech before and it's like, boom, you're going to be live. I feel like we should have practiced this before today,
Well,
but whatever.
okay, this is live TV. No, I feel like Instagram Live always has technical issues, so I'm glad that we're
Oh,
just both here.
wonderful.
Yeah. No, well, welcome, and I'm super excited to be a part of your inaugural address on live stream. It's never happened before, so it's super exciting. I appreciate you doing this with me, and I'm excited to talk to you about everything in your life. Someone said audio is okay. I'm assuming the audio is okay. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me? Well, I
I can
mean,
hear
we've been
you.
chatting, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. So I think it's fine. Anyways, I'm excited to talk to you about, everything in your life, and particularly your new book, How to Make Your Brain Your Best Friend. And,
Yes, I've got one.
I have a lot, there we go. I have a lot of like personal questions about just sort of the experience. I mean, I'm sure your life has been a whirlwind and, the book came out was it last Thursday, the 28th?
It was Tuesday, Canada,
Okay.
US, and yeah, Thursday, UK. And then I don't really know how the rest of the world works with that, but whatever, somewhere between those two
Yeah.
dates, I guess.
All right. Well, you're in the throes of the very first week, and someone just commented, your book is too popular. I have to wait for new stock. I'm loving reading your new
Oh,
book. So that's awesome.
that's good news. Yeah. That is what's so
Yeah.
weird about it is like I've got no lens to know how like if people are buying the book, if there's sales. I mean, people are leaving me comments, which is lovely, but there's no way to know. And usually with social media, it's like we have such a direct, clear metric of how things are doing. So it's strange.
Yeah. You get that immediate sentiment when you post a video and people start commenting and you get an idea of what people think about something. And I think when writing a book, because I also wrote a book and it's coming out in October, so I can relate. And there we go. Thank you. And it's so odd to go through this huge project of putting all these ideas together and not getting that immediate feedback all the way along. Because it's also helpful a lot of the time. You post an idea or a thought, and people come in with comments and really change the way you're thinking about it, and just you get that
Totally.
added layer.
Yeah, and especially I think as two scientists, we're used to that constant peer review. Like we're used to that iterative feedback along the way. It's so strange writing a book because I mean you just spend I don't know how long you spent writing it. For me, it was like boom, 8 months. You spend a lot of time in your own head and sort of lose your sanity by the end. So you hand it in like what have I created? I hope people like it. You know.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's tough because it's such a massive chunk of material to like keep in your head of understanding exactly all the nuances. It's weird because you write the book yourself, and then even still looking back, it's like, oh, I'll read back chapters and be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Like, I don't know if that happens to you, but for me it does. Maybe I just have a horrible memory, but it's just a lot of material.
Yes and no, but I think like I'm unfortunately such a perfectionist that I read that bloody thing like cover to cover. I think 60 to 70 times. I've already
My
listened
gosh.
to the audiobook 3, 4 times. I don't know why I do that to myself, but anyway, like the material is fresh in my mind, so it's helpful for
Yeah, well,
review.
that's good. I read it a lot. I didn't read mine 60 to 70 times. That's pretty remarkable. Well,
Autism.
I want to ask you about the sort of origin story of this book. I think for people who don't know really about it that much, how to make your brain your best friend. Um, having worked through it a bit of it myself, I already know that it's not your typical self-help book. And I think I want you to explain, you told me because we've already talked about this offline, but I want you to explain, please, a little bit about the origin of this book and sort of what it means to you and what you hope people get from it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having like an allergy thing at the moment, so I can't resist to rub my eye, but you have to forgive me that. Yeah, so, well, I mean, there's a few ingredients that went into the making of this book. Of course, like we're both neuroscientists, and I mean, thing number one is that just kind of looking around a lot of the conversations that we're having about mental health in public spaces so often are at odds with what we know about brains. And so I felt the need to correct that because I think often people are being sent in the wrong direction. People know that they have to work on their health and well-being and happiness. Most people are working incredibly hard in that endeavor, but are just being given all the wrong tools, all the wrong advice to do that. The second part of that is, I mean, anybody who follows me will probably have heard me talk about my struggles with my mental health and my mum struggled with her mental health, and in the end she didn't survive it. And I think first of all, I do think that gives me a slightly more compassionate lens to view this stuff. I think sometimes I get feedback about this, not to like toot my own trumpet, but I think a lot of the people who follow me, what they like about my content is that it has that human touch. I know what it's like to not be able to get out of bed in the morning, and I think people can feel that connection and compassion. And I've kind of worked that into the book, like whatever state you're in, whatever kind of brain type you have, like it's flexible. You should be able to use the book. It's not like just go for a run kind of advice. And then the kind of like slightly more poetic part of it is that when you lose somebody to mental ill health, I mean, the guilt is unbearable. It feels like it should have been preventable, And in the aftermath, it's like I was left with all this stuff I wish I'd said, all this stuff I wish I had taught her about caring for her mind, and like just know where to put it. So, I mean, humans are irrational, and I think books are like little time machines. So I decided it wasn't too late and just put all of that into the book as kind of a love letter to her and to every brain that reads it. Yeah. I'm like trying to not, I don't want to cry first thing in the morning.
Well, that's a beautiful thing and a beautiful reason to put this book together. And so far, what I've read of it, it's a beautiful book as well. And, great messaging and just important messages. And I also just want to comment on, at the end there, you said to every brain that reads it. And it's just funny because I think you and I both see a neuroscientist perspective. You can't avoid seeing the world as a bunch of brains in like meat suits kind of walking around.
100%, yeah.
And like, because it's funny, we talked about when we both learned that we were writing books. Your book is called How to Make Your Brain Your Best Friend. And my book is called Why Brains Need Friends. And we both have that sort of like seeing humans as brains in this machine. Yeah, it's just, it's weird because you can't help but see the world like that. And it's true because we are all controlled and powered by this organ that is mysterious and locked away in darkness that we can't access it, but we also are it. And those mysteries, I think, are what drove me to want to study the brain in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's so funny to say that because like I finished a feature article for iPaper and I opened it that was the introduction that every scientist sees the world through the lens of their own discipline. So, I assume virologists are hopping about looking at handrails with mistrust, hesitating to shake your hand and stuff. And for us, it's like, it's exactly that. You see the world as a brain might. You see humans as brains and you see the world as a brain might. And in doing so, it's like, God, this is a bit hostile. The world that we've built for brains, I can't help but notice and sort of wince at the environment that we're tasking our poor sort of dinosaur brains to navigate. They're not built for the environment that we've created. And I think it's always top of mind to me for that very reason, because you're walking about with the lens of a neuroscientist.
Yeah. So in your book, you have these, it's like each chapter is a sort of theme about one facet of making your brain your best friend and enjoying life and being happy. And I want to ask you about a few of them. I'm trying to figure out where I want to start. Let's start with delight. I want to talk about delight with you. And maybe if you could start by sort of defining how you view delight or how science views delight, however you want to define it, and just talk a bit about like the way you see the importance of that in daily life.
Yeah, I've got to work on my elevator pitch of that, because I've tried to make a series of videos talking about it, and I always get stick for not quite telling the full story quickly enough. That's why I wrote a whole chapter about it. But
Well, take your time.
it's trying to like. So I mean, I talk about microdosing delight throughout every day, and sometimes that leads people to misunderstand it as a euphemism for something else. I really mean the experience of delight, and I think it's really important for human well-being. Nobody ever talks about delight, but I think it's a very important factor in human well-being, because life is quite famously a bitch. Life is tough, and we're not always happy. We might have an overall happy life, but there are periods of life that are not happy, like when we're grieving or going through a breakup. And what delight offers us in times of crisis when we're not happy is, first of all, like a brief reprieve from feeling miserable. And that's really important for like giving you some resolve and strength to carry on. And I kind of like briefly reminds us what makes life worth living. Reminds us that life is indeed worth living. It's easy to forget that when you're like really in the thick of grief. And then the next part of it is that like life is stressful. Talking about the fact that we're existing in this environment that our brains did not evolve to handle. Like we're existing in constant chronic stress. Like work is stressful, loneliness is stressful. The brain interprets loneliness as kind of a threat environment. And we know how bad, I think most people now know how bad chronic stress is for health and well-being. The added difficulty is that chronic stress, there are adaptations in the brain that make us less able to regulate and deal with chronic stress. It's a very unhelpful feedback loop. And so what I suggest delight can help with is like it can become kind of a manual brake on the stress response, rather than hunching your shoulders and expecting your brain and body to figure it out and calm the HPA axis. You use delight as a manual braking system to remind your brain and body, hey, I'm not in danger now or anymore. Like, let's go back into parasympathetic mode. And I feel like I talk about delight, and I seem to never fully capture it. But I think the other question then is kind of, what is delight? There are these transient, pleasant experiences, right? Happiness is long-term, delight is short-term. It's not exactly pleasure. Like delight and pleasure very often co-occur, but they're two distinct experiences in that like pleasure is something that we crave, like the hedonic pleasures, it's often embodied. Delight it's all up here, and they're never things that we crave, but it's positive, like a happy experience. So I think animals are a pretty universal source of delight. Watching squirrels conduct elaborate heists on bird feeders, these kinds of things are delightful. Watching children play, watching old couples like be mischievous together, these are all delightful things. And yes, I've been talking for a long time.
No, that's okay. I mean, you've done a perfectly great job of explaining the purpose of delight. And I think what's interesting about it is the idea of you have a stressful, difficult time, and delight gives you just even if it's just a moment or a minute of just reprieve from that, where you are just, oh, life is good, and this is pleasure, and well, this is delight. And, I'm inclined to ask you, it's sort of a personal question, but like how you find delight. For me, I'm thinking about, and also I'm kind of curious about like the way you differ delight and pleasure, because when I think of delight, I think of, I send the last email of the day and I go and like grab my favorite snack and just sit in my favorite chair and it's like, oh, delight. Like this is just what I needed. I guess that's kind of pleasure too, but does delight have sort of an element of surprise to it or like serendipity? How does that?
Yeah, I mean, like we could split hairs about like what is delight and what isn't delight. We need more research. I plan to do that actually. We need more research to really uh, delineate like those kinds of experiences. Because what you've just described, I would describe that as pleasure
Mm,
actually. But there is also a delight in that. But yeah, I think delight it's less embodied. It's more up here. It's more about what it makes us think and feel about the world that we inhabit. It is often spontaneous. There is a kind of a surprise element to it. And then, of course, the problem becomes like, well, how do you engineer something that's spontaneous? And it's often just about getting rid of distractions. Like we're so glued to constant distraction that we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to be delighted. You've kind of got to be looking around you uh, for those moments to occur.
mm.
If you're never, it's like fishing, right? You've got to be there with the fishing rod ready to catch delight when it appears, and we rarely are these days.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like stop and smell the flowers, sort of old phrase, but
Sure.
you're walking through the garden like this, right? Swiping on your phone and you're not really stopping to look around. Those moments, and of course the importance of nature. Now we're getting off topic, but just the beautiful world around us and being able to take it in. I'm going to look for more delight in my life. I really am because I could imagine
Yes. Yes.
the the relief that I would get from incorporating those moments, or at least trying to incorporate them. Now, I want to switch to a different theme. Let's talk about belonging.
Sure.
Very important one. Of course, loneliness is an issue, but how do you view the role of belonging, and where does the internet factor into this dilemma?
Yeah. So I mean, you kind of a whole book about it, but we're very lonely these days. Life is very lonely for a lot of complex reasons. It's harder for us to build connections. We spend more time alone. And in writing the chapter about socializing, because it's like so fundamental to human well-being, we like loneliness is up there with obesity and smoking as like a or all-cause mortality risk. It really is not good for us. In trying to tackle that problem, like we know that we need company. We know that it's not just company. The whole cliche of being in a room full of people and feeling lonely. So you need company. You need real connections amidst that company. But we talk less about a sense of belonging, and I think that's equally important. And at times, that is the low-hanging fruit that we can actually exert agency over ourselves. Because making friends is tough, and I think I bring the autistic perspective to that. I haven't always had an easy time of making friends, moving around the world and everything. Like, you should go out and try to build connection and make friends, but it's slightly out of your control. You've got to wait for that to happen, and it takes time. With the belonging thing, I feel like that's almost entirely squarely within our control, and it makes a big difference to your feeling of loneliness. Your brain processing whether social bonds are absent. I think belonging can really help in that respect. But the trouble is, like, a lot of the content that we're scrolling through online is in direct opposition to our sense of belonging. Like it's not just about you being likable to other people, you've also got to like other people in a general sense. You've got to look at other human beings or humanity and feel like you belong to your species. And if what you're scrolling through is like the non-stop horror, I mean, we all know what's been in the news this past year. It's really harrowing. It's tough, to watch humans behave that way and not feel like, God, stop the world. I want to get off. Like I don't belong with these people. I'm not saying don't watch the news, because it's important to stay aware of what's going on in the world. But we waste energy on things like rage bait. There are entire content farms dedicated to generating, like Karen type videos where somebody
Mhm.
walks in and blah, blah, blah. I mean, some of that is real. And sometimes that's the only way to hold somebody accountable for, I don't know, like classism, racism. I understand that. But most of that content is actually just content farm generated fake. And we're all outraged and we're sucked into it. We rejoice in our indignation, but then we walk away from it not feeling like we belong with our species. And because of like the availability heuristic, your brain thinks whatever it sees the most is like an accurate measure of how much stuff happens, right? So if you're watching content like that all the time, you forget that that's actually a rare instance. I don't think I've really seen that happen very often in real life. I mean, I worked in retail, so I have seen it happen, but we're getting kind of a false impression of how frequent, how the percentage of the human population that is like that.
Yeah, and that's dangerous too because we're pulling away from one another, and I mean, and the truth is, if you look at the actual data on like sort of sense of community, if you ask someone to talk to a stranger in their community, people expect that they're going to be rejected or that they're not going to have a good interaction, but they always feel better after. It always improves their mood. And in the studies that have done this, 0% of the people that they approached rejected their conversation, their attempt at a conversation. It always turned into something fruitful. And, I was having a conversation with Johnny Thompson, who you are also friends with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Johnny shared a story. He was telling me, and sorry, Johnny, if you're here and I botched the story, I apologize, but this is the way I remembered it. He was standing by the side of the road with his daughter, and cars were driving by, and he, like, I think he did like a honk, honk for us, and they honked, and it was just this sense of, oh my gosh, how amazing is that? Like, that's such a fantastic experience. And we were
Yeah,
talking about it. I'm like, that's a sense of belonging. I think that gives your
yeah,
brain this rush of like that person in that car who I don't even know is on my team. We share
yeah,
something in common. We just bonded, and that gives you such a rush of dare I say delight, but this community, and I think that for your brain that's a really wonderful thing because it signals protection. It signals that there are
exactly.
not enemies among us. I am safe here, and I think when in the opposite, when you're looking online and you're seeing political feuds and all this disagreement and horrible things happening globally, yeah, you think I wish I really wasn't. I'm not proud to be human. I think sometimes you can feel that way, and that's I think damaging for our well-being.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, that's the thing I think I want people to understand about loneliness and sense of belonging and everything is that like your brain interprets loneliness and a lack of a sense of belonging as a threat environment. Like
Mhm.
that it's in like fight or flight. It believes that it is unsafe, which also kind of explains why, to a certain extent, we're easily pleased. Like that kind of beep beep horn thing that you just explained. It's such a small, trivial thing, and yet we get so much from it because suddenly your brain is like, all right, okay, I've got like a tribe around me,
Mhm.
probably not going to be trampled by a herd of bison or run out of food anytime soon. I'm safe,
Right.
and those like low hit uh, small trivial acts have a big, big impact on us. Like it doesn't need to be, you don't have to be the most popular person in the world.
Mhm. Yeah. And by the way, I have my chat paused from I don't even know, maybe 10 minutes ago. A question came in from Minnie. Can we be alone but not lonely? And I just wanted to pause on that because it's such a good question. We can be alone but not lonely. You can, you come home from a family vacation, you're out for a week with your entire family, and you get home and you're completely by yourself, and you're not upset about it. You are very content with being alone in that moment. But on the other hand, you can also be lonely while around people. So, for instance, if you are supposed to go to a concert with a group of friends, and then at the last second, everyone says, "I'm sorry, I'm sick, I have the flu, I can't come," and you go to the concert alone, and you're surrounded by 20,000, 40,000 people, but you're not with anybody. You're not enjoying the experience. You can feel lonely in that experience. And what's um, what's important to recognize about both of these states is that in living a life full of either of these states is not good for you. And there actually is some research showing that the sort of health consequences are different between a life of loneliness and a life of isolation. Isolation being you are actually alone all the time. Loneliness meaning you, regardless of your actual level of engagement, you don't feel satisfied in the amount of interaction you're getting. And so
And then,
addressing, yeah,
yeah, and then I would just say, and as a distinction from isolation, loneliness, there's also solitude, which is, as you described, coming home like, oh, I need some time to myself. That is presumably distinct from isolation, right?
sure,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I'm just catching up on messages now.
Yeah,
See if
I'm
there's any.
trying to like, yeah, I'm not a good
It's
multitasker.
some people are really good at that to somehow pay attention to the chat while they're talking. I cannot do that. I'm bad at that. Anyways, let me ask you a question that I have prepared instead of sourcing one from the chat. So let's talk about now the relationship to oneself, right? So we talked about belonging, relationship to the community. You know, how to make your brain your best friend is very much the title, at least, is very much about your relationship to yourself, to this organ that is you. What is your take on that? I mean, I know it's a very broad question, but just off the top of your head, I mean, do you have any tips or general guidance or thoughts from this chapter about the importance of your relationship to yourself and how to um, make the most of it, I suppose?
Yeah, I think what you're asking really is about a sense of identity, but unfortunately, my brain has picked up on something else in what you've said and wants to follow that. So I'm going to follow my
Take
brain
it.
where it wants to go,
Yeah, go
which
for it.
is like part of the reason the book is titled How to Make Your Brain Your Best Friend. And part of the reason all the way through the book, I'm kind of anthropomorphizing the brain, externalizing it. It's like a little pet that you're charged with caring for, is because I think that really changes people's approach to self-care. A lot of the advice that we're being given, it's like hack your brain into submission, like how to cheat your brain, how to use brute force discipline, to drag it, hack it into submission. And I think when you apply that logic to literally any other living thing, the absurdity of it becomes instantly clear. Like if your kid is going through a really hard time and they're distressed and acting out, or your dog is like distressed and acting out, you don't go online like, how can I hack my child into, it's absurd. It's absurd. You try to understand their distress and provide kindness and care. It's that simple. And so, like what I've said with my book, if you never follow any of the specific advice, you should still take something from it, largely because it should change, like kind of transform your relationship with your own brain such that you see it as this thing you're charged with caring for, instead of this bloody thing that's, like causing you all this aggro that you've got to, I hope that people take that from the book, that they change their relationship to self-care, as a result of that.
Yeah, interesting. Because it's not always nice. It's not always nice to yourself to try to be hacking and optimizing and putting all that pressure on yourself to be perfect.
Yeah, no, trash. Like I've got no time for any delusions of optimization or perfection. We're human beings. Like imperfection is kind of our whole shtick, isn't it? It's silly to try to optimize ourselves. It's not an achievable goal. And anyway, even if it were, I'm really not convinced that that would lead to a more happy or fulfilling, healthy life in any way.
Yeah. Well, I want to end with a big question because you did end the book with this big question, the meaning of life. I want to know what your thoughts are on, what is the meaning of life
What
and
is
how
the
do
meaning of
you,
life? Yeah, okay, no pressure.
yeah, no, it's a small, quick
Well,
question.
like,
No big
yeah, I
deal.
can get that done in a couple of minutes. The meaning of life. Yes. So, well, do you want to finish the question? Are we going to direct that in any, like, give me more specific, or just what is the
I
meaning of
could, but
life?
we're running out of time and I don't want to know the meaning of life from you, honestly.
Right. Yes. Well, I mean, I opened that chapter with a thought experiment where I basically asked the reader, what if I could transport you into your own personalized utopia? Like, plug your brain into a simulation. You can have whatever you want, be whoever you want. It's heaven. The only caveat is that you have to know the whole time you're there that it's not real. Even if it looks and feels real, you have to know that it's not real and that the outside world continues to churn on in your absence. I try to pull the reader to a landing spot, which is like, you would eventually be like, what's the point of all this? You know, like even if you were like nonstop in pleasure and success, you would eventually question its purpose because human beings, it's not enough to have just our internal experience. That's not enough for us. We're social animals. We want to feel like we're affecting the world around us, leaving some imprint, engaging with other creatures, other people, affecting, leaving something behind outside of our own internal experience. And I mean, that simplifies, I think, the meaning and purpose conundrum because, you know, you just have to think about how can I leave a small imprint on people or the world around me that is pro-social, right? I think I talk about that in the chapter as well, that sometimes people get pulled into quite dark corners in their desire to matter, in their desire for purpose, when actually, like I was saying earlier, we're easily pleased. Like you can assert a sense of significance with really small acts of kindness. You can do little things like planting wildflowers. Like you don't have to be a world-changing activist or Nobel Prize-winning scientist for your life to mean something, for you to have some purpose. It's like we're just tiny, small acts that leave a mark behind. That's enough. That's all your brain wants out of the equation.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, and I can understand sort of the common thread and throughout the book and throughout how the way you see life and your experiences throughout your life and your training as a neuroscientist. And I'm only part way through the book, I have to admit, but I'm excited to continue reading and finish it. But I really appreciate you, Rachel, for who you are and the messaging you put out, and I really appreciate everyone in the chat here being, polite and respectful and gushing about how awesome Rachel is, and I agree. And so I want to thank you for doing this and congratulate you on your inaugural Instagram live stream session.
Yeah, thanks for
Um,
coming, guys.
yeah, and I just wish you the best with everything in the book, and I can't wait for maybe book two. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I'm already mentally writing it.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Rachel, thank you for doing this, and I'll talk to you again soon. I wish you luck in the ongoing journey.
See you guys. Bye.
All right, bye.